Hola, muy buenas noches y bienvenidos a la nueva edición de Iowa News and Views. Yo soy Derek Maurer y ahora tenemos un programa muy importante para usted. Vamos a conversar, vamos a compartir informaciones y puntos de vista sobre el tema de English Only. Well, hello and welcome once again to Iowa News and Views. I'm your host, Derek Maurer, sitting in for Joe Bolcom, who is away fighting the good fight. And in this edition, we're talking about the English-only bill, which, as we're taping, is pending in the Iowa House of Representatives with an expected passage and also, I think, an expected veto by the governor. Nevertheless, this is an idea of making English the official language of the state of Iowa that has come up before, and I think we can expect that even if it doesn't become law this year, it'll come up again. So we have with us our guests who've come. Mr. Tom Nguyen is director of, tell me what you're director of again?
I'm president of the Iowa Institute for the Well-Being of Refugees with Employee and Family Resources.
Okay, with the Employee and Family Resources in Des Moines.
In Des Moines. Right.
And Brandee Marckmann is English as a Second Language Coordinator for Hawthorn Hill Ministries, which is a social service agency of the United Methodist Church.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to Iowa News and Views.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's start talking about this bill, which, as I say, we kind of expect that it won't become law this year, but there's been momentum over the past several years, and some of the sponsors think this is a really good issue, so we'll probably see it again next year.
Definitely.
Brandee, you were telling me a little bit before the show kind of who is behind this bill? Who wants this?
Right. The bill is fueled by U.S. English Only, which is a movement that comes out of Washington. They have, as they say, they claim 1.3 million members, and it's with the idea that making English as the official language laws in the United States will encourage immigrants to learn English. That is the idea that they put forth.
Mm-hmm. So what they've done is they've fashioned a bill declaring English the official language of the state of Iowa. Mm-hmm. Tom, you're a native of Vietnam. You came here as a refugee.
Right.
I'm interested in your experience integrating into life in Des Moines, and whether you think that a law would have given you any more impetus to learn English than you already had.
You know that as refugees we have no choice. We have to resettle wherever you will be accepted. But for our own good and for our children's good, you need to do well in order to be able to integrate into the new society that you are in. I can give an example of myself. When I first arrived in the refugee camp, English is very new to me, and I can speak few words, just enough to communicate, to ask for food and shelter and so on. Yeah, but as soon as I received the word that I will be resettled in America, then I focus on learning English. Yeah, I need to prepare myself to be in a command in English in order to be able to looking for a job and then to do whatever I need to do for my own sake and also for my children's sake. And I learned day and night. Nobody forced me to learn English at that time. But now, you know, as I sit in front of you, is my English good enough to communicate?
I think it's good enough to communicate, yes.
Right. Yeah, so nobody forced me, and I think every refugee is trying to be good. Mm-hmm. And of course, because the American is caring about the people who suffer during the war, and they want to give them an opportunity to be successful. And come back to the history. Nobody forced anybody to learn. They need to figure out the way, what way is the best way to become a good citizen, and contributing whatever they can to the society.
Yeah. Now, some of the services that that might be available to immigrants, Brandee, you coordinate the English as a Second Language program in Des Moines. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. We have classes. A student will come twice a week, either Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday from 9:40 to 11:40 in the morning. We have about 100 students who come from 12 different countries. Probably about half of our 100 students are from Vietnam. We have a fair number of Sudanese, probably about 20 Sudanese, Bosnians, Mexicans, Guatemalans, Hondurians, from just about every continent. We've had students from many, many countries. And we are the only ESL program in Des Moines that provides free English classes plus free transportation and childcare. And we're the only program that does that, to my best of my knowledge. And I've had many students who have come to me and wanted to take classes, but since our daycare is full, I've had to turn them down. And our transportation zone is just within the central city, so if we have any refugees or immigrants who want to take classes on the south side, they're not able to, or farther away from Des Moines, they can't, or if they want to take evening classes and they have the needs of transportation and childcare, they can't do that. So we are very unique in that aspect. Right.
And of course, as newly arrived immigrants, they have a lot of other needs.
Right, yeah.
And Tom, I think you're involved with a lot of services
right. That's
with
what
immigrant
we
families.
are thinking when I am a refugee myself, so I understand the need of the refugees or immigrant, whoever resettled in Iowa. As I mentioned earlier, Iowa state is very good to refugees so far. The reason I'm saying that because my agency, that Employee and Family Resources, that's the #1 agency, non-profit organization involved in resettlement refugees. We are providing a lot of service that they needed, that in the community that considering them as underserved, or the service provider do not know how to provide the services. So as we work on the Iowa Institute for the Well-being of Refugees, we provide limited direct service to the people, and also we are playing a role as an advocate for their need and training the mainstream service provider about the cultural differences, about what way is the best way to serve people in order to help the mainstream to better serve the refugees.
So you're working primarily with other agencies
yes,
to help these agencies
right.
Serve the needs of immigrant families.
We make a link to different agencies based on the refugee need.
What are some examples of the kinds of services we're talking about?
For example, if the people need a social service, we will contact with Department of Human Services. If they have a sick in the family, mental health problem, for example, we will link with the medical center or with the doctor to help them to treat the patient, because actually the physician who treat the patient doesn't have any clue how to teach them, because they brought with them a lot of traditional way, so they need to understand, and in order to be able to help them to be treated. And we sometimes provide the interpreter for the service provider, because most of the time the service provider utilize the family member as an interpreter is not good at all, because they cannot get enough information in order to treat the patient as it should. So we continue to do that in monitoring the activities between the family and also between the service provider, and helping them with a lot of need. Yeah.
So, and immigrants and their families, well, they're immigrant families,
right.
They have, there's a lot going on in their lives
right.
when they arrive, and learning English is
right.
just, is one more thing in a context of really adapting to a whole new way of life and a whole new culture.
As I know, I think that learning English is the #1 priority in each family member. They can learn from friends, they can learn from watching TV, listen to the radio, myself, when I first came, I sit in front of the TV almost half day, try to absorb the pronunciation and in order to learn how to pronounce good. Like I asked my sponsor to buy for me a mirror, and I sit in front of mirror trying to pronounce the word right. And I asked my sponsor to teach me how to pronounce the word of TH. Because when you pronounce the word of TH, you have to put your tongue out in order to pronounce that. If you don't, then you don't. So people really learning very hard in order to be able to communicate with others. And I think Brandee can testify for that.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I did want to ask you to just talk a little bit about, you see many different nationalities in your work. I mean, what do folks have to go through to learn English?
Sometimes it can take years. There's so many variables, you know, how fast they can pick up the language. Usually the younger the student, the more quickly they learn, although that's not only true. We have some students who pick it up very quickly. The Bosnians, since their language is more like English, they do tend to pick it up pretty well and move up pretty quickly. Whereas a more challenging example might be a Sudanese woman. Des Moines has the largest Sudanese population in the United States. And in southern Sudan, which is the area from where most of the refugees come, probably about 5% of the women are literate in their own language. So it can be excruciatingly difficult probably for us to teach a Sudanese woman how to fill out a job application to get the vocabulary where she could do that independently might take us about 3 years, even if she is making an effort. Some, although not all, Sudanese women come to our program not even knowing how to hold a pencil, but are educated in many other ways, certainly.
Well, and so the difficulty that people, there's just maybe a sense on the part of the proponents of English as an official language that, well, people they just need a little push to learn, or you don't see that?
Not at all. I think that they realize the push. I'd say probably 99.9% of refugees and immigrants, when they arrive in America, can realize that English is already the common language spoken, and they know that to succeed, they need to learn how to speak it. And the drive is definitely there, but it's just a very excruciatingly difficult process for them.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let's take just a little break and let people know again that they're watching Iowa News and Views. I'm Derek Maurer, sitting in for Joe Bolcom, who is still away fighting the good fight. And we're going to put our email address up on the screen right now. We know you're out there, and we want to hear from you. If you've got ideas for the show, comments about the show, ideas for topics and guests, we'd love to hear from you. We also have a web page, and if you write real quick, you can probably pick it up from the screen there. This time, we're talking with Tom Nguyen of the, tell me again your organization.
Employee and Family Resources.
By the time the show's done, I'm going to have that memorized.
Right,
from
thank
Employee
you.
and Family Resources, and Brandee Marckmann from Hawthorn Hill Ministries. And we're talking about the English-only bill, the push to make English the state's official language. What kind of message do you think it sends if we are to pass a bill like this to immigrants?
I think a lot of the proponents of the bill don't, as you said, don't think that immigrants and refugees want to learn the language. I think it sends a message that refugees and immigrants don't want to learn the language and are not smart enough to figure out that it's very important. And of course, Tom gave his testimony. They fully realize this. It's very much realized. And I think the refugee and immigrant communities feel a bit, maybe you can comment on this, insulted by the legislation, that they need this kind of thing. It sends a message that they're not complete citizens or people because they don't understand the English language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at the Iowa history, we considering our state is an immigrant state. From day one, who forced everybody learn English? Everyone have to learn. And now the refugees have been here for 25 years since the Vietnam War ended. And I think that the refugee has been involved in community activities. They own the store. They become employed in the factories, or they become more involved in the education. And their student is in top notch. So where are they from? Yeah, they need to know, and they don't need to be forced to learn English, but they set the priority, as I said earlier to you, that we don't need to force them. Simply, maybe in order to help them, we need to look more into some kind of services available in the community.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to complete the show with talking about, you know, what can we do? This is a divisive issue, and I think it would be nice to pull back from that and focus on what we can do positively to help people learn English and have the services they need. So let's start talking
you need
about
to understand that, you know, in the United States we have 50 states, but Iowa is the only one that we have the state agency to provide service for the refugees. Okay, now the bill saying that they are going to create a center for refugees, and they're going to put it under the economic department. And I don't think that's right, because the economic department may not understand what is the need from the refugee community. And I think that if they want to do that and could create a center, I think that is a positive aspect of the bill, is that they need to come up with some concrete idea how to organize the service. Then you can provide for the refugee need, social service, legal issue, education, job opportunity, and social gathering. And they need to have a place in order to be able to react with others. That may help them to be less of stresses in the life as a human being.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the bill, because I just really read it for the first time today, and all the attention is really on the first very short paragraph of the bill, which says the official language of the state of Iowa shall be English. And the rest of it is concerned with creating this agency, this Center for Refugees. And what you're saying is the state already has an agency concerned with refugee issues.
Yeah. Once again, I want to confirm with you that Iowans are so good to refugees. I, for one, dare to say that. I'm very proud to be an Iowan today. After 5 years to become naturalized. And I think that it's wonderful to explore a way to care for each other and at least to pay attention to the need of each other. Don't play the game. You know, we are human beings. We are suffering enough. And now is the time for us to be together and heal the world. Yeah, because Brandee mentioned very, very clearly about the bill, that we don't need to have that bill.
Yeah. Brandee, what could we do to make it easier for immigrants to learn English?
As I stated, there's definitely a need for ESL classes. We've got a waiting list, and I know California, which is a very hot topic for English only, they do have the English only law, and legislation has a waiting list, I think, of thousands and thousands of students, which is very common in cities. And I think along with ESL classes need to be what we offer, free transportation and childcare, because of course a refugee coming or an immigrant coming to America will probably not have any money, any transportation, so these two things are very necessary in order to learn English. And I know some people can do fine picking it up just by maybe TV or conversations with friends, but a lot of times refugees and immigrants might be very isolated if many of them don't have American friends with whom they can speak, so that's why classes are very important. Also, job placement services. We do some job placement at Hawthorn Hill, and we also have a Sudanese Women's Employment Project, but we only have one Sudanese woman working, and we have a very long list of Sudanese women who do need to work, so some more bilingual job placement counselors are very helpful as well.
And these counselors, there just aren't any, or there aren't resources for these counselors? What's the story?
Probably aren't any. Funding is hard to come by. Right.
And as we were talking before the show, you mentioned there are a lot of people with the skills to teach English. Your teachers are volunteers.
Right, right. I have a friend from Central College who went on to get a master's degree in teaching English as a second language, and the very bright woman. She's been looking around in Central Iowa for about a year for a position, and there are definitely the students who need her help, but not the position created.
And she'd like to get paid for her work and to make a living doing what she does. Yeah. Tom, in terms of some of the other services that people need, I mean, we know we have human service agencies here that serve the native population, let alone the problems that might result from the dislocation and the isolation of being an immigrant family here. What are some of these services?
I think that as human being, when people suffer, then they will try to find a way to heal the suffering. Of course, everyone considering as a new arrival, they have a big need. They need to know how to adjust themselves into the new environment, and need to learn how to communicate with others and learn how to get from one place to another place. And they need to learn English in order to be able to go to shopping and to communicate with the neighbor and so on. And who forced them? Nobody forced them. And they just automatically get into the trend where they need to be. And I1 is so good on that. Brandee mentioned about the sponsor. And the sponsor play a very important role in helping the refugee family to learn English. Sometimes they come to their house, and sometimes they send the children come to the house and teaching their children and also teaching the adults to learn English. If you continue that way, I don't think you need any bill at all, to be honest.
So, do you try to match immigrant families with sponsors?
Yes, we do. And even that now I organize some citizen class and encourage people to learn English in order to become a citizen. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And United Way provide volunteer people to work with the refugee family. It's wonderful. We don't need to fix something is not broken. And this is not broken. As I mentioned earlier, that 200 years. But this country came from all over the world. Now we won't speak English. What's wrong with that?
Not broken, but as you say, maybe we need some more resources.
Exactly.
Right.
That's right.
I feel like the English-only legislation tends to doesn't really say what the problem is. Is it truly a problem that immigrants don't want to learn English? Probably not. Probably, like Tom said, we need more resources, and that's really the effective way to go about helping people learn English.
The people you work with, do they seem to be tied in with these social networks that they need?
Some of our students, I think sometimes they're not as aware as they could be, but they know of most of the social service agencies. They know of EFR. Yeah.
Well, we're getting down to the last couple of minutes of the show. If you could be king or queen for a day or for a year, what would you do to make sure that we wouldn't need the kind of legislation that's being proposed?
What do you think?
What would I do? Like I said before, more ESL classes and decent funding for them, as well as better ESL not better, but I'd say more frequently offered ESL classes in schools. Just, I guess, a more tolerant attitude as well. Americans over the centuries have tended to think of immigration as something that is good for their parents' generation or their grandparents' generation, but bad for their own. And as Tom said, they're continuing to make wonderful contributions to our society that sometimes we overlook, and we just might get the idea that immigrants cause problems, but in fact, they're the strength of our country, and they always will be.
Okay. Tom,
Yeah,
where do you see
more.
your organization, Refugee and Family Services, in the next 5 years?
I really want to focus on caring attitude and treat everyone with respect. Okay, and that will cover everything that I said today. That the refugees are very grateful to the opportunity they are here, and I can assure you that they will continue to do good and be good.
All right.
And the second generation, the third generation will be blooming.
Okay.
And you'll be wonderful.
All right.
If you will continue to care for them.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much for coming. We have to wrap it up now, but I think we've really tried to take what could be a divisive and negative experience for our political community in the state and turn it into a positive focus. So
thank you.
Thank you for watching Iowa News and Views. We've been talking about English only. Quisiera decir algo para nuestro público español hablante. Simplemente gracias por estar aquí, gracias por enriquecer nuestra cultura y especialmente por su bello idioma. I'm Derek Maurer. Thank you again for watching, and please join us again next time.
Hi, my name's Rusty Martin. I'm one of the